Welcome, class, to Kitchen 101, where we teach you how to think like a chef. How to cook, not what to cook. Giving you the knowledge and comfort you need to create and modify recipes to fit your chosen way of eating and lifestyle. Today we'll be taking on the great debate of fresh, frozen, or canned, which is better, with the focus today on fresh foods. So grab yourself a pen, paper, and some pruning shears because I'm Professor Kitchen and class is in session. One of the great things about living in a modern first world country, aside from the eradication of smallpox and the invention of air conditioning, is that we have a plethora of seasonal fruits and vegetables available to us year-round. This reality is something that we take very much for granted. You see, back before the technology existed to be able to store and transport fruits and vegetables across the world, people only had the food that existed in their native area and only for the seasons where that food was available to be harvested. So if you lived back then and wanted, say, some grapes or asparagus and they weren't in season, well, you just went without. In fact, throughout most of history, if you didn't grow it yourself, then it was hard to come by. You had to have neighbors who grew it in order to even have tried it. For example, it wasn't until 1968 that China got their hands on mangoes. They so loved the fruit that some people started even worshiping it. I'll put some links to more information on that in the description box below. When you only had you and your neighbor's gardens to eat from, and things came into season, it was a bit of an overkill. Things would be harvested, and then you ate them, and ate them, and ate them until you were sick of them. Then you didn't have it again until their season came around again. Sure, you could dry some of that harvest, but that's not really the same now, is it? Back to the present. We have several different great ways of preserving food in modern times. Food preservation is so abundant that I'm sure that there are very few of you watching who don't have a pantry and freezer filled with store-bought canned and frozen fruits and vegetables. It's a faucet of today's world so ingrained that most of the time we don't even think about it. In fact, most recipes you read that require a large batch of a fruit or vegetable call for canned or frozen. Think to most pie or tomato sauce recipes. Even when we sit down to family dinner, canned corn is a normal, whereas corn on the cob is seen as a treat. So which is better, fresh, canned, or frozen? Well, as with many such complicated discussions, it depends. We're going to have a short series on the pros and cons of fresh versus frozen versus canned. Let's start with fresh. Many people have jumped on the fresh is best bandwagon and will regale you with stories of minerals and nutrients and tell you something like, straight from the dirt, ain't gonna hurt. Okay, that's not a saying. I just made that up. While this sounds good and seems plausible, it's not exactly true. Sure, if you had a garden from which you were harvesting your plateful of heirloom vegetation, then you're at the top of the nutritional and flavor pecking order. However, most of us don't have access to heirloom plants freshly grown in our region. Even if we did, not every plant will grow in every environment. If you live in Canada and you want to grow pineapples, you're going to need a lot of indoor real estate available because pineapple can't handle the weather there. Also, the fruit are going to be small. This is a pineapple from one of our potted plants, and we live on the Gulf Coast where it's nice and warm. So what's wrong with the fruits and veggies at the grocery store? Most of the food you have at your local grocery is shipped in from major growing areas, especially the popular stuff. Here in the U.S., oranges come from Florida, grapes from California, apples from Washington and the New England area, and peaches from the hill country of Texas. These items are picked before they get ripe so that they are more stable during shipping. Then, when they get to a warehouse close to their final destination, they are exposed to ethylene gas to ripen them. Another issue with store-bought fruit and veggies is that you are buying with your eyes and not with your mouth. Most things in the produce department can't be sampled before buying, so you end up looking for signs that you think mean that the food is ready. Growers and distributors know this and market accordingly. They want to get vegetation on the shelf that you will look at and want to buy. They don't care how it tastes or the nutritional value, only how it looks. As a result, most produce are as mass-produced as they can accomplish. Instead of crop rotation or fallow policies being implemented to strengthen the soil, processed chemicals are dumped into the dirt to help keep the plants healthy. The plants that are grown are varieties that are hardy and disease-resistant, but not necessarily the best in any other way. Take, for example, the red delicious apple. While it is definably red, it is nowhere near delicious. With a bland flavor and mushy texture, it is quite possibly the worst apple on the market. The weird thing is that it started out just the opposite. I've included a link to a fascinating article on it in the notes section below if you want to check it out. If you're someone who doesn't like apples, it's most likely the fault of the red delicious. So how does one get the best bang from their fresh produce? Number one, grow heirloom varieties yourself or buy them from a local grower. Number two, for things that are more exotic to your area, you're going to have to go through your grocer. Number three, if there is a specific exotic that you love, you might consider sinking some time and cash into learning how to grow it in your environment. That's all for today, class. We'll continue this series on fresh versus frozen versus canned on another day. Hope you'll have a great week. God bless. Class dismissed.